Hey everyone, I am going to go over the arteries and veins in your cat, and first what I want to do is actually just go over all the veins that are going to be in your assignment, and then I'm going to show you how to cut out the heart, and then also get down into the leg a little bit more and show you how to cut the colon off and kind of go down into the leg arteries and veins. So first I'm going to start with veins. So for video purposes, I did cut off the ribs. You guys don't need to do that. I just wanted to give you guys an easier look, and I couldn't hold the ribs open and show you veins at the same time. Okay, so we have, here is our lungs, we have our heart. I did have to take the pericardium off and a lot of the fat, so I spent quite a bit of time cleaning that off first. And I am going to show you, first of all, this big, you guys all should have seen by now, the cranial vena cava. So that's this big vein up here, and then it's going into the right atrium of the heart over here. And then right below that, hopefully we have the caudal vena cava coming into the heart as well. So we're meeting here at the right atrium, just like what you learned and you saw in the pig hearts that we did a few weeks ago. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you, and I'll be able to show this when I cut the heart out too a little bit. So I have the caudal vena cava coming in. I have the cranial up here, and you also can see the veins that are going to the heart, or to the lungs, sorry. So we have the pulmonary arteries taking blood from the heart into the lungs. Those are what these are right here. And then right off of the cranial vena cava, the first large vein coming off, this kind of going below the lungs here, that's the azygos vein. So that's this vein coming right off, the first large one right off of this cranial vena cava. Okay, so then as I move up, so cranial vena cava, and what that turns into is we have the brachiocephalic veins. So we have two brachiocephalic veins. We have one that's going to go right and one that's going to go left. And I'm going to show you guys on the left side, obviously, because I cut the right one when I was destroying this cat's arm a few weeks ago when I was doing the nerves. So you can see the nerves really well on this side. Anyways, so I'm going to take you over to the left side. So we have two brachiocephalic veins that are going to branch off. And essentially the brachiocephalic is going to branch off again. And so as it comes up, and this will be the same on both sides. So as it comes up, we have the left external jugular, that's this large vein that's going up. And unfortunately, it's usually really hard to see the internal. But if the cat did have internal, if I hadn't cut them already, it would be coming really close, a very small internal one, pretty close to the carotid artery, that is. So this is our external jugular going upwards, and then when the vein comes over more to the left, whoops, I did cut that, but I tried to save it for you guys a little bit. Okay, so brachiocephalic coming over, then we have the external jugular going up, and this is then what we call the subclavian. So that first part is going to be the subclavian, and then as it goes down the arm, same vein, but as it moves places in the arm, it changes names. So subclavian, then it goes into the axillary, and then down into the brachial as it goes deeper into the arm. And you can kind of see on the end of my elbow here, this is the brachial. This is the end of that brachial vein. So two brachiocephalic that branch off into the external subclavian, then the axillary, then the brachial. The other one that I want to show you is the subscapular. So that's going to be this vein right here that comes off the subclavian, and I actually cut it, sorry guys, that goes deep into the arm. Just like the subscapular nerve, the subscapular vein is going to go into the arm. So it's this small one that's coming off of the subclavian subscapular, going deep into the arm. Okay, now that we've kind of gone over the veins briefly up here, I want to do the arteries next. So my arteries didn't get dyed super well, so hopefully I can get these shown to you guys. So coming out of the left ventricle, we have the aorta and the aortic arch, and coming off of the aortic arch here, we have two more branches. So we have this aorta, this is the aorta, you can see it going down into the abdominal area. So this first branch that's going to be here, once again, we have the brachiocephalic artery. Now, we only have one brachiocephalic artery versus two brachiocephalic veins. So this first one is going to be the brachiocephalic artery, and then the second one is actually going to be the left subclavian. Okay, so we have our brachiocephalic artery that's going to come up, and actually it branches again, and that's what our carotids are coming off of. Hopefully I can kind of hold that vein over. So brachiocephalic artery, and then the two carotids are coming right off of that. And then going to the right side, we have the subclavian artery. Okay, and then same thing as the veins, we have this, I'll go back to this side. Okay, so then we have the left subclavian that comes directly off of the aorta, and it's going to come up into the arm, and we're going to have, just like the veins, subclavian, then turns into the axillary, then turns into the brachial as it moves down the arm. And then our two carotids are coming off of the brachiocephalic artery and coming up into the neck. So then we have our carotids up here running along the trachea. So once again, brachiocephalic artery and left subclavian artery come directly off the aorta. Then from the brachiocephalic artery, the two carotids branch off of that, as well as the right subclavian. The left subclavian comes directly off of the aorta that turns into the subclavian. So we have subclavian, axillary, and then the brachial as it moves down the arm. Another thing I want to talk about briefly while we're up here is your heart also has arteries that are on top. So these are our coronary arteries. And this actually, when these arteries get plugged, that's actually why heart attacks occur. So these little coronary arteries that are on top of the heart. I also want to show you the intercostal arteries. So in the ribs, costal meaning ribs, so intercostal, we have all these little arteries that run along the ribs, in between the ribs. About the brachiocephalic vein, this is also called, one other thing about the brachiocephalic artery is that it's also called the brachiocephalic trunk. So same thing, but kind of different names. So the trunk is this, would be this bottom part before it branches. So now we're going to move down the cap. I can find my aorta, the aortic arch, and then I'm going to follow this abdominal aorta all the way down. And as we move down, we obviously have our liver here. And one thing I do want you to find while you're here, Okay, the next thing I want you guys to find is the portal vein. Portal meaning liver. So actually my vein didn't get dyed very well, but what the portal vein does is it's gathering the blood from the intestines and bringing that into the liver. So if you can kind of know where it's going, you can hopefully find it. So we have the liver here, and my vein, you can't see my vein, it didn't get dyed very well, but if you kind of go up into the liver does have blue in it from the dye. So if you can kind of, if you want to work backwards, then you can as well, if you actually don't know which one it is. But this is my portal vein right here. It just unfortunately didn't get dyed. And that's pretty normal in these cats. Don't mistake the portal vein for the caudal vena cava. So here's my caudal vena cava, and my portal vein is going to be up here, coming from the basically the small intestine. Okay, so I want to keep moving down, and inside of all of the mesentery, you can see all of the red. So that's all of your mesenteric arteries and veins. You just can't see the veins in there, but you can easily see the arteries really well. Next thing that we're going to go over, renal, meaning kidneys. So we have the renal vein. So coming right off of the, or should I say going to this caudal vena cava, we have the renal vein. And also right next to it, you can hopefully see the renal artery as well. And that's going to the aorta, which, clean this up a bit. Here's my aorta right here. Okay, caudal vena cava, back to the aorta. Okay, the renal artery is actually not the first branch. We have a celiac trunk that's up here, and then the second one is actually what's going into the mesentery. So if you guys want to dig up here a little bit further, you'll be able to find the branch that comes off of the aorta and actually goes into the mesenteric artery. Up here we go, hopefully. Okay. Yep, so actually right here, this is the coming off of the aorta. This is going to be that first mesenteric, that's the mesenteric artery right here. So it's the second branch coming off of the abdominal aorta. And the first branch is what we call is the celiac trunk. And then we have, once again, the renal artery right here. And then we're going to move down into a little further. Oh, in case you guys have these in your cats, so this is actually the reproductive organs of the cat right here. Okay. So I have my ovaries up here. So don't freak out if your cat has one of those. Okay. Now what I'm going to show you guys is how to find the external iliac and internal iliac artery and veins down here. So it kind of gives you a little bit more of the directions in your assignment. So hopefully, once again, you guys don't have to cut a lot of this stuff out, but I am just for video purposes because I want you guys to be able to see everything that I'm doing. Okay. So I'm going to find the colon, so basically the last part of the large intestine, and I'm going to cut that out. Just cut a chunk out because I want to be able to see these iliac arteries and veins. And they're kind of hard to see, you kind of have to dig for them. So that's why so I'm going to spend a little bit of time here kind of cleaning up some of this fat that's down here. So hopefully you guys can start to see this large these large veins that are down here. So once again, we still have the aorta, caudal vena cava, and then what we have next. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and show you on this leg because it's important that you know the difference between the external and the internal iliac. So we have, same thing, caudal vena cava, and that, when that gets down here, this is going to branch going down, not this artery or vein that's coming over here to the right. So this vein that's going straight down right here, this is the external iliac. And it's called the external iliac because it's going external on the body. So the external iliac is what's actually going to turn into the femoral vein. External. Well, same thing with the artery and the vein. So we have the external iliac artery and the external iliac vein right here, and both of these are going to turn into the femoral as it moves down the leg. Same thing on this side. Okay, now hopefully I can show this to you guys. If I can get this cleaned up a little bit more. So we have external iliac, and hopefully I can find the internal for you guys. Okay, so then we have coming straight down is the internal iliac artery. So that's the, vein. That's this vein that's going down kind of deep into the pelvic cavity. So, tweezers or scissors. External iliac is this big one. Internal is this small one that's going deep down. So once again, it's important to know the difference, that the external is called the external because it's going deep, it's going more externally and turning into the femoral vein. Same thing with the artery. So the next thing I want to show you is the deep femoral. So that's what this one is right here. It's a branch off of the femoral, but it's once again going deep in an artery there as well. Okay, so we have the femoral vein, and then we have this deep femoral vein that's coming right off of that and going deep into the leg. Okay, and if you guys have more questions on these, obviously you can ask me during class. Okay, the last thing I want to show you how to do is we're going to cut out the heart. Now the whole purpose of this is to try and preserve as much of these arteries and veins as we can so that you can save your heart and study them later on. So actually when we do this, we're going to take out the heart and the lungs both. So by taking out the ribs, I also took out the diaphragm. But I want to cut these veins and arteries right above the diaphragm. So I want to go all the way down to make sure I get the aorta down here as well. Okay? And then for me, I just want to barely cut some of these up higher in the neck because I want to try and save some of these arteries and veins up here. So, and then basically all we're doing is taking out the heart and lungs. So we're creating a pluck essentially. So I want to be very careful taking out these bottoms. I want to make sure I get the arteries and the veins with it. Just taking my scissors. I'm not cutting anything. I'm just basically doing a blunt dissection. I'm trying to keep as much of this as I can. And all I'm doing is basically cutting or cleaning up this fat that's around. You are gonna have to cut the trachea, unless I guess you wanna keep it. And see, oh, here's your esophagus too. You're gonna wanna, we don't want that. Okay, keep that carotid, hopefully. Cut the trachea there. Last few bits. Okay, so now I have my heart. Now what you guys can do is mostly spend the rest of the time cleaning this up and cleaning a lot of this fat off that's up here. So now you should be able to get a better view of, and like the back here you can cut off. So here's my aorta, and this is zygos vein is wrapping around the back of the heart, which is pretty cool. So you can take off the esophagus, you can take off the trachea, that stuff's kind of, that's back here, clean all that up, and you should be able to now see the aortic arch really well, and the branches off of that, just like what we went over earlier. Okay, so that's how we cut out the heart. Pretty easy. Try to save as much of this stuff as you can, and then you can clean it up and study that. So if you guys have any other questions, you can ask me during class, and I'll also have this heart out, this cat, so that you can see all that good stuff as well. So I'll see you guys in class. Thanks.